Welcome back to the Sharpen Podcast for yet another exciting episode. As you probably already know, I'm Josh Sendejas, and I'm actually a little bit excited today, guys. I'm excited because we have a very familiar face with us, none other than
Erik Shaw.
in the house. He's familiar to everyone for probably a number of different reasons, but he's particularly familiar with me because he made a very lasting impression on me in a very quick manner. First time I ever met him, he had a very warm, gentle, humbling presence about him, and it resonated with me. And as I got to learn a little bit more about him, it was honestly captivated with the way he carried himself. And really, the real reason we brought him on today is because today's episode is about faith first, family always, and how to lead well without losing what matters most. And that's something that I really drew a lot from him. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, thanks. You're too kind, and I appreciate those kind words. But again, I'm Erik Shaw. I'm a Christian, a husband, a father, proud new grandfather as well. So that's how I define myself as who I am. What do? I work at 5 Point Credit Union. I've been there 29 years. That's kind of what old people say, but that's where I've worked, and that's where I've hung my hat for work for the last 29 years.
Good Lord, 29 years. You're way too humble. I'm telling you that.
Almost permanent.
Well, there's a reoccurring question that we like to bring up here on the Sharpen Podcast, and I noticed you're wearing a bracelet there.
Yes, sir, I am.
I was wondering if you would tell us a little bit about your Acts experience. Maybe a little bit before and thereafter.
Yeah, my Acts experience started in 2006. I was actually at that time teaching confirmation with a friend of mine, and one of my other friends kept trying to talk me into, and you all know him as Jack Fitch. Jack tried to talk me into going on this Acts retreat. It was still new at that time. Really didn't know what it was all about, and I was like, maybe, I don't know. But he was persistent, and he kept asking. And finally, I think I told him one day, I said, if I fill this form out, will you leave me alone? And he said, I will.
We've heard that
so,
before.
I did fill it out and then kind of forgot about it, frankly. And as it turns out, the unique part about that experience was my dad had also signed up for the same retreat at that time.
That's awesome.
Unbeknownst to each other. We didn't know. We were just having a normal conversation, a few weeks after that. And said, I'm going on this retreat. He goes, when is that? I'm going on one too. And so I actually got to share my retreat with my father, which was a really great experience. So I went on mine in 2006, even leading right up to it and looking for ways out. What kind of excuses can I make to not go? I'm sure I have something else I could be doing or somewhere else I could be.
What can I tell them?
And I could have come up with plenty of reasons. My children were young. I was busy at work. I could have had any number of activities or something from work that could have got me out of it. But for some reason, I decided to go ahead and go, and I'm really glad that I did. From that point, I served on a number of teams. Say between 2006 and 2012, I had the privilege of serving on teams, which is, again, another fabulous experience. So then we got to 2012. We had so many people in our parish that wanted to serve, and I felt like I had done my time. It was time to let some of the other people serve. So I kind of stepped out and wasn't involved for really until about 2024. And completely accidentally, almost. I actually had gone to Mass at Our Lady. Why, I don't really know. I think the time worked better for me, or we had something going on. And I ran into an old friend, and he stopped me after Mass and said, hey, I know you've been involved in Acts before. We're about to have a retreat. What, think about helping us? And I'm like, I'm not even a member of this parish. I go to St. Charles. Because it doesn't matter. We need help. We don't have enough guys to do this on our own. So can you help us? And I said, I really didn't think much about it. Told my wife about it. She said, you ought to do it. Pray about it. And I did. And, as my son likes to say, there are no accidents. I asked myself, why was I there even? I don't even know what I was doing at that church or what caused me to be there. But it's pretty clear that God put me there for that reason, because it's that experience and the experiences after that have really made a significant difference in my life. And I've become friends with a lot of really good Christian men and Christian people that have helped fortify my faith. So I've done 2 retreats with them. That's led to me being involved in prison ministry with the Colby retreats. So it's just opened a whole lot of doors for me. Again, no accidents when it comes to God's plan.
Nope, I say coincidence is God's way of staying anonymous.
It is.
And, I have to say, you were there for a reason. I mean, I, suffer from anxiety, since my accident. And, I don't like being in unfamiliar places, or I feel somewhat, something I can't control. And whenever I was asked to be on team, I was so excited. I was, through the roof. And I was so excited that I didn't think about the fact that I would be serving with a group of people that I did not know at all.
Exactly.
And I've talked about this before, but honestly, whenever I got there, um, you really, you calmed me down. Like, for some reason, you just had a presence about you. You were very humble. You were very kind, and that led me to think, hey, these these people are, just normal, ordinary people, and I had no idea who Biggie was at that time. I honestly didn't, but I'm very glad that you said yes to that retreat, because it taught me a lot, and I learned a lot from you. With saying that, when did faith become non-negotiable to you in your life?
I've talked about this before in some of the retreats that I've been on, and I've never really had a period in time in my life where I was absent from my faith. As I was said, I've always been attached, connected to God in some way, but there's been times in my life where it hasn't been the priority that it should be. Unfortunately for me, I would say I had to get quite a bit older for it to be, as you call it, non-negotiable. Say sometime around right before that retreat, it something about. I mean, I think it comes with age and getting older and priorities in life shifting, but you realize that faith really is the most important thing. And so, sometime around then, it really resonated with me that I needed to put my faith first, and so everything else could fall in place. Um, so that's how I'd answer that. That's how I'd say it became non-negotiable for me. Probably 4 or 5 years ago.
It grounded you.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And
That's awesome.
so I was already old by then. So it takes sometimes we all have different journeys.
Man, you're still not old. You're still not old. Got that youth in you.
I knew I liked you.
So, whatever you did become, non-negotiable, as I asked, did your family follow you in this change?
Uh, Not necessarily right away. I mean, I think we all, like I said, all our journeys are different. So it resonates with different people at different times and different places. Now, for me, I felt like, well, I'm all in. I need everybody else who's close to me to be all in as well too. And I tried to force that a little bit and tried to say, I want everybody at the same place I am, or feeling the same way I am, or making it the priority that I do. But it doesn't work that way. Uh, Something resonated with me that made me think, instead of trying to control or force other people to do things, which never works, you can't do that. Uh, when I had plenty to work on with myself, there were so many things that I needed to fix and I needed to work on and I needed to be a better example of. I said, let's take care of that first, and then let's see where that leads us. And it's amazing once you start making it a priority and making things uh, kind of I call it trying to lead by example. It doesn't have to be a loud example. I think it can be just as simple as the way you act. It's we say it at the end of mass now. It's a thing that I really love. It's you know go out and by your example. Lead by your example. The way you live your life. So I think that's what I focused on, trying to be a better model and a better example of how I led my life. I knew I had plenty of work to do there and still do, but
It's hard
it
to
starts
do.
there.
It is. Preach without preaching. It's always hard to do. But I mean, at the same time, it's hard to do, but it's a very strong, like you, as you said, it is when, a non-Christian especially, sees that,
Yeah.
it resonates with them. They small things, telling somebody even hello. I
It's
mean,
it's like what one of our friends say at a team meeting the other night. Said, "Go out and preach the gospel. If necessary, use words."
yep, yep. That was Mr.
It
Fitch.
was.
That was Mr. Fitch. Yep, that's my Kobe dad. So, yeah, how does your Acts brotherhood reinforce that walk? How does it?
Oh, it's critically important. I mean, because life's hard, and we get plenty of distractions.
Oh
You
yeah,
talked about that when you introduced me in the beginning. I wear a lot of hats. I mean, there's a lot of things going on in life, and there's a lot of things I have to take care of. So, you know, all those things have distractions that keep us from being focused on our relationship with God at all times. And that's ideally in a perfect world, that's where we would be 24/7. We're always centered with God, but life happens and things get thrown in the way and we get distracted. So, but when you have a brotherhood and you have other people that are and doing the same thing and they're struggling with the same things, and we reinforce each other and we pick each other up, and I have brothers, and you're one of them, that send me a reflection every day. It's really important. It helps keep me grounded. I'll send reflections to my family. I think hopefully it helps them. And I've got several people that we share faith with and we share struggles with, because I may be having a bad day today, and I need you, and you may be having a bad day tomorrow, and you need me or somebody else. So that's what we're there for. I mean, we're meant to live in community and worship in community, and uh, because you just can't do it by yourself.
no, that's why we always say iron sharpens iron,
It does.
and that's what we're doing here
Sounds
with
like
the
a great name
sharp.
for a podcast.
Yeah, it might be changing. So, how exactly does walking with God look like in your everyday life? You have your brothers who help to hold you accountable, but we're still in the world. And like you said, there's distractions that happen. I mean, all the
Well,
time, all the time. The enemy is always trying to trip us up, or it might just be life in general.
yeah.
But how does walking with God actually look in your daily life?
Most of those distractions they're dangerous because they're very subtle. You don't even realize it. But I think you have to be intentional about your prayer life, and you have to make it a priority. We talked about this before we went on. I'm a list maker. I write things down, and I have a to-do list, and I know what has to be done, and I check them off, and I feel good when I check things off. Well, prayer is it's on repeat every day, 7 days a week. I have to spend time in prayer. There was a time in my life where really, I mean, I wouldn't say I didn't pray, but prayer life was important on Sunday. You know, time to go to church, time to listen to what God's message is, and then you go about your week and you do it again, next Sunday. That's not good enough. It's every day. So I look for opportunities to recharge, or I call it plug in, any opportunity that I can find where I can be with other Christian people and people that share those values. It's good for me, and hopefully we're good for each other. But you have to make your prayer life intentional. So I pray every day for sure, and I pray multiple times a day, and it may be 2 or 3 minutes. It may not be a long time, but I'll spend some time in quiet reflection, or reflecting on God's word, or reflecting on something, or praying for somebody or something. So
You know,
it's got to
it's
be part of your everyday
some
life. Is the key word.
absolutely, and like you said, it might just be a few minutes, but that doesn't. I feel like that doesn't matter to God. What matters to God is the fact that you stopped and turned to Him and gave Him that acknowledgement. And sometimes it's a sacrifice, but that's what He wants, and that's what
Yeah.
He asks from us. I always say, sometimes I don't want to pray my rosary.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I'm still new with it. It takes
Yeah.
forever. But I'm like, well, I mean, Jesus didn't really want to be crucified either.
Yeah.
So why don't I just take this, 10, 15
Yeah.
minutes and, devote this to Him?
Yeah.
And that's what He wants. He wants us to turn to Him whenever we have issues, or even when we don't have issues. But how exactly do you approach leadership with faith first?
It's a really good question, and it's actually one that I struggled with as I got as my faith became more important to me. Like I said, it was never not important, but as it got non-negotiable, as you like to say, are really important for me. I said, well, how do I take that, into my everyday life? I mean, I spend more time at work than I do anywhere else. So how does my faith and business life connect? Because sometimes they don't always intersect, and there's not. How do you make that work? So I like to research and I like to find resources where I can get information. And I actually found a book online. I'm too dumb to read because I don't have the patience to sit down and read a book. But I did listen to a book called "Lead Like It Matters to God" by Richard Stearns, and I'd recommend it for anybody. It's a really good book. I enjoyed it so much that I listened to it twice. And the second time, I took notes, and I've got notes about that thick. And from that and other resources, I have for myself, given myself 7 characteristics of what I consider to be an effective Christian leader. And you can do that without preaching. I don't, I don't
Yep.
preach at people, and I don't. I just try to say, this is how I do things. This is how I go about it. Hopefully, you see that, and it has some type of influence on you. But
Live by
those 7
example.
characteristics to help keep me centered, they are taped to my desk. I mean that I can't. There's not a day that goes by that I don't see those 7 characteristics. I'm like, am I embodying those characteristics to be the best type of Christian leader that I can be?
How do you resist the temptation to let, work not dominate your life?
Yeah, been guilty of that before. I think it's a natural tendency, especially as I was younger, and you're ambitious and you want to do the best thing, the best that you can. And I think it's one of the Christian characteristics is excellence, which seems kind of counterintuitive, but I think we do have an obligation to use the tools that God's given us to the best of our ability.
I like that.
Um, I mean, we're stewards of whatever talents and whatever gifts God has given to us. I think we have an obligation and a responsibility to use them to the best of our ability. So that's where excellence does come in as a trait of a Christian characteristic for me. But you can't let it be the number one priority. The focus needs to be number one needs to be your relationship with God. So it's amazing how everything else kind of falls in place and feels a lot better when you take care of that one first. So uh, you got to remind yourself, it's about setting priorities, and there's so many things that you can do, and there's so many hats like I said, we can all wear. But when we stay focused, realize I can do one thing at a time. That's all I can do. And that one took me a long time to learn too, unfortunately. But I'm still learning it, but I'm better at it than I was maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago. But
Man, I think you might have a son named Craig Cormier because
my,
it's
my
like
brother from another mother.
Craig is, he wears a lot of hats and does a lot too. And I find myself telling him, Craig, you can't look at the whole pool table, brother. You only one ball at a time. Don't worry about that 8 ball until it's time. But yeah, I mean, it's
But it's
hard,
hard to do.
and that's why I actually wear this before I have my cross from that my sponsor gave me from OCIA. But that's why I wear this necklace, and it's a cross with the nautical compass around it,
Yeah.
with only north on it. It has no other, doesn't have east or west or south. It only has north, and it reminds me, to keep north, like just like you have your 7 characteristics there. We have to remember to keep God first and hold ourselves accountable,
Right.
even sometimes when we don't want to.
And and that's it happened. I can talk the game, but I don't do it all the time.
None of us are
I can
perfect.
give you an example last week when I got a little off the rails. I got overwhelmed. There was a lot of things going on, and things got twisted for me. And my wife put me back in check. So she was my guardrail at that time that said, "Hey, you're breathe, slow down,
Good
get,
for that.
get back on track." But you have to have that, and I think, like I said, because we're all susceptible to the things that happen in everyday life.
How do you live out your faith at work without compromising uh, professionalism.
I think, for me, I like to keep things simple, as simple as possible. And I use a mantra at work. It's called just be good people doing good things. If you can keep that at the front of your mind, focus on what is right. There's times you gotta say, forget about how much it costs, how long is it gonna take. I mean, those things we have to consider them at some point. But what's the right thing to do? And let's start from there. And how do we achieve that? What's the best way for us to get there? So if you're always trying to do what's right, and again keeping those 7 characteristics at the front of our mind, and sometimes ask yourself, how would God want me to handle this? You know, how would Jesus handle this? So, again, you got to recenter yourself and refocus, and it's harder to do when things get sticky and hairy. But
Well,
stop, breathe, and
I can certainly tell you, I might not be there at work, watching you, but I know that you do a good job of it, because one of the first things somebody told me about you is that, well, to be honest with you, I was unaware of your occupation. I was drawn to you, you had a humble spirit, you were welcoming, and then I found out how centered you were around your family and how much you loved your family. And you know, that's the kind of guy I want to be like. And, I was on the Axer Street there with old lady, Our Lady, not old lady, Our Lady of Guadalupe, and my roommate was Jack Fitch. And I was telling him, I was like, man, I love Big E. The guy is just so humble and just like so welcoming and, soft in the spirit. And he was like, yeah, yeah, he is, and he's got a very demanding schedule. And I was like, yeah, but he does. Kind of like dismissive a little bit. And Jack was like, you know what he does, right? And I was like, yeah, I think he like works at a car dealership or something, doesn't he? And Jack might be mad at me for saying this, but all of a sudden the light flipped on and there's Jack Fitch in his underwear staring at me like I'm crazy. And he looks, he's the CEO of 5 Point Credit Union. And I was thinking, whoa, wow, you can turn that light off now. But nonetheless, I was very like surprised to find that out, especially with all the characteristics that you embody and display on a daily basis. And one thing that I've heard about you is they said, not from Jack, it was from someone else, and they actually said, he's worked there since he was 18 years old, started out as a teller, and he said, and I quote this, they said, and let me tell you something, he treats everybody in that building the same way, from the janitors all the way up to the board members. And that struck me.
well, I appreciate it. Those are kind words, and I hope I can live up to those. But it's hey, again, it's like I tell my team there. I said we all just have a job here. This is my job. You have your job. None's more important than the other. So, and it's the same with I think in our faith life too. We all have a role, and we all have a part to play for each
Absolutely.
other. So, none's more important than the other.
No,
They're all needed.
just like we say, faith, family, and then everything under that. You have this big family and this demanding job. And, even though, like we were just saying, you fall short here and there, is there any practices that you specifically use, like to, protect evenings, weekends, or like, just to remain present in the moment?
Yeah, I think it comes for me. It's come with age anyway. It's taken time to realize what's really important. But it's a matter of setting priorities. Um, I'm very intent. Regrounding myself or reconnecting myself to my faith throughout the day helps. Like I said, you know, uh, heard it in a homily one time. But pray persistently. Perseverance is one of those key Christian characteristics that I tell you about. You've
You
got to be
sent me that
you've
today.
got you've got to be perseverant. So you've got to just stick at it. You've got to be consistent. You got to just keep showing up. You got to just keep. It's like practice makes perfect. The more I pray, the better I feel. And there are times that I stray from what I want to do and being the best version of myself. Absolutely, yeah. But I think the more I try to center myself and reconnect with God, the easier that becomes.
Man, you're killing me here. I was like, I'm thinking, like, I have a question in my head, and literally, you're just coming out with the answers. I was
Yeah.
sitting there thinking, you know,
I'm here to make your
what
job
I
easier
was
if I
sitting there
can.
thinking, like, what advice for men, would you give to balance it all? And then you throw that fastball right down the middle, and I'm like, man, that's probably the best advice you could actually give somebody.
Pray persistently and surround yourself with the right people. That'd be the if I was going to oversimplify it,
I always say
that's
that
how I break it down.
faith rhythms, they really sustain balance.
Oh, they do. Yeah, yeah. It's like I said, when I tell you, I'll pray multiple times during the day, and it's a relatively new habit, within the last 5 or 6 years, but it makes a difference because it's so easy to get I call it disconnected. So you got to reconnect yourself. You got to plug back in.
What legacy would you hope to leave? To your not just your family, but your church, your community.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think, I've said that before. I like to keep things simple, but I just want to be hopefully known as a guy who imperfect, but tried really hard to treat people with respect, to treat people with empathy, and and always was striving to be the best version of himself, even though he would fall short sometimes. But um, I think I just want to be known as a good person. Somebody who just tried his best to do the right thing.
Man, you say these things, and I want to just like, jump out because people that don't know you, I feel like I want to scream to them. He does this. He does this. That's exactly how he is.
He
Like,
tries.
I mean, but you are. I'm not like you said. We're never the best version of ourselves, but you genuinely come across as a genuine example of humility, sacrifice, um, holiness, and like it blows me away. That's why, I mean, like I said earlier, whenever we came up with this idea to launch this podcast, and I was telling Craig, I want Big E. I want Big E, and I'm really excited that you're here today. And I
No,
know your time is
it's an honor.
valuable.
It's an honor to be here. It's a privilege. I'm enjoying it.
Well, let me ask you a question I know you're probably dying to answer. Is how's that beautiful grandson of yours? How's Dawson
No,
doing?
he's doing fantastic. He's the best thing ever. So
Look at that
uh,
smile.
yeah, you'll get a smile out of me with it when you say that little guy's name. So yeah, he's doing really good. Thanks for asking that. But yeah, Dawson's doing great.
I'm I'm so glad to hear that. I know that.
Yeah, we had a little rough spot with him when he was first born, but he's on his way home now, and
Yeah, today
we're just gonna spoil him and ruin him.
on his way over, he sends us a text. Oh, Bubba's coming home today, and I was
Yeah,
like, wow,
yeah.
amen.
And man,
Praise God for that.
the prayers and all the well wishes that we've had. It's I told somebody the other day. I said it's actually overwhelming in a good way. As I said, when I tell you that I can actually feel prayers. I shared that with my family. I said I feel these prayers. I said I don't know how to explain it, but they're there, and I feel them, and I know that they're working, and they did. And that's other people doing God's work. That's what God is to me.
Is there any, throughout this, situation, was there any specific lessons that you learned?
One that I'm patience.
Oh,
It's I don't know of too many people that will admit and say that they have a lot of patience. I certainly do not. It's a character flaw for me, and sometimes God has a way of forcing us to learn lessons that He needs us to learn, whether we want to or not. So. Sometimes when you go through trials and tribulations and things don't go the way that you want them to go, or the way you planned them out to be, you gotta have a little patience, and it's I'm not good at it, but sometimes God will force you to practice it a little bit.
absolutely. I know that for a fact. I was a very, very, very impatient person. Uh,
I can't even
I
say
think it.
was. I am.
I think. Well, same here, but I think it almost is like genetically. My dad has no patience.
Mhm.
I have had no patience at all. And I've talked about it before, but people will ask me sometimes, what would you do if you could go back 30 seconds before you dove off that boat and broke your neck? You know, they ask me that. What would you do if you could just go back 30 seconds? And it shocks them when I look them square in the eye and I tell them I would dive off that boat. And they're like, why? And I was like, well, I mean, not only was it God's will, but I, do I enjoy it all the time? No. But I've learned so many things about myself. I've grown as a person with patience, especially. I had no patience at all. Slowly but surely, you start to develop it because not because you want to,
Yeah.
but because you have to. You're in a situation to where you have no choice.
Yeah. I think sometimes one of the lessons that I've learned in life too is I spent a whole lot of time. I always had to know why and understand things. And until really fairly recently, I said we're not meant to understand everything. That's what faith is for. So
Exactly.
there's things that you're just not meant to understand. Quit trying. You're just going to frustrate yourself and everybody else. Just accept that's God's plan and have faith in it and trust that it's right. And it's easier. Sounds easy. It's not, but
No, and that's the motto I pretty much rolled with. I remember, I was in the hospital after my accident, and the doctors would be like, "Well, you can't do this, and you can't do this, and you're not going to be able to do this, and this isn't going to work." And I was like, "Okay, okay, stop, 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 stop. What can we
yeah,
do?" And they were like, "No, you can't do this, you can't do that, like this doesn't work because of this, and this isn't going to work." I said, "You're not hearing me."
that's not the
It's
question.
like, what can I
Yeah.
do? And they thought I was in denial. Like, I mean, they literally sent in like psychiatrists to talk to
Mhm.
me, thinking that I was in denial. And I was like, guys, I understand. This is a bad situation. Would anybody like choose it? No. But, I'm put in this situation for a reason. So, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and mope or cry about it or ask why. I'm just gonna, roll with it.
Yeah.
And I was, what can we do? And eventually they realized that I'd accepted, what it was, my fate,
Mhm.
and I just honestly I've grown as a person through it. And I don't think I would be the person that I am without my accident. I know I wouldn't be as close with God. Exactly what you just said earlier, faith, you know, because we have to rely on that. And sometimes, like you said, we're not meant to know why.
Yeah.
I'll ask God one day, but
But we always think we're supposed to understand.
no,
Yeah.
He's the man. He's got all the answers. Well, guys, I think that's about it for today. And I actually ended up with more than I expected. And I always say with these, you can sit next to somebody that you think you know like the back of your hand. And no matter what, whenever you sit down and actually talk to them, you always learn something new about them. And I guarantee you that I've learned plenty from you. And I know that going forward, there's more that I will learn from you.
Hope
And
so.
I'm not kidding whenever I don't think that you're a guy who falls short. You might fall short sometimes, but you are a great Christian example.
I appreciate
And
that, and
I
then yeah,
really
and you are
appreciate.
as well. And there's so many of our brothers that I look up to and draw strength from, and I count you as one of those for sure.
I don't. You can't look up. You got to look down. Well, I appreciate having you on.
You bet.
But until next time, peace be with you.
And stay sharpened.